Okay, so Leonie is just conjuring an image of the meteorite, which I'm going to be talking about. The format of my paper is the format of my response to the 100 Hours Project in general, which is that I've been doggedly literal-minded and decided that the best way to respond to something called the 100 Hours Project would be to write 100 blocks, each of 100 words. So that there's 11 today. You don't get all 100, but there's 11, and we can talk about why choose that format in the discussion, perhaps. Anyway, this is it. I'm thinking about the meteorite, which was found by an enslaved man named Alf in Augusta County, Virginia, around 1858, and which passed from there to the natural history establishment of Henry Augustus Ward. From Ward's it was dispatched in slices to several separate museum collections. We could begin with what meteorites tell us of cosmic origins. Good books with titles like Meteorites, Their Place in History start there. Those cosmic claims also have a history, part of which is how Enlightenment people learned to believe again the vulgar, credulous claim that metals could fall from the sky. For instance, the immense catalogue Meteorites, Witnesses of the Origins of the Solar System promises to describe how these inconspicuous grey or brown rocks are the only witnesses of the origin of the solar system and the Earth available to us, providing invaluable information on the origin of the chemical elements, as well as when and how our planetary system formed, and describing what happens when huge meteorites, the asteroids, collide with the Earth. It's illustrated with plentiful colour illustrations from the huge meteorite collection at the Natural History Museum in Vienna, which is the oldest in the world. The mention of asteroids is no coincidence. Ursula B. Marvin, writing on the slow process of accepting meteorites' extraterrestrial origins, notes with dismay how very inconsequential meteoritics appeared to some of our leading historians of science as recently as 45 years ago, and celebrates its establishment as a crucial link between different disciplines, though she adds that, unfortunately, this may result not so much from discoveries of amino acids or extrasolar grains in meteorites as from the dramatic impact scenario for the extinction of the dinosaurs. Against this longing for significance, I want to recall the glancing quality of meteorites, their accidents. For while the cosmic story appeals to me, it also feels remote from the contingent history of my meteorite. An artefact of human neglect and care, it has been sliced and cemented inexpertly, its flank removed, material which I'm told is worth a couple of grand. The denim pattern on its surface is the distinctive etching of the Wittmann pattern, nickel-iron crystals formed in metals which cool over millions of years and which oxidize at different rates. The patterns are named for Count Alois von Beck-Wittmann, who heated meteorites while acting as director of the Imperial Porcelain Works in Vienna in 1808. Wittmann is no longer given priority for this way of raising the marks on meteoritic surfaces. Instead, it's given to an obscure William Thompson, not the famous one, who doused them with sulfuric acid in Naples. I like the older tradition, inaccurate as it is, because it raises the question of why there were meteorites in a porcelain works, even an imperial one. Was the Count treating them as materials which could be manufactured, marketed, baked? No earthly metal has quite that structure on its face. Hugh Kenner argues that the distinct particularity of any work consists in those features which, over time, cannot be forged. By the end of the 19th century, meteorite hoards were of sufficient size that the main question was how they should be organised. In 1904, Dr. Aristides Brezina, director of the mineralogical section of the Natural History Museum in Vienna, described how to form a synoptic collection which aimed to illustrate as fully as possible all ways in which the manner may be considered. He contrasted this with merely systematic collections, which hoped to secure and to preserve as great and complete a variety of the material as possible. His prime example of the systematic style of meteorite collection was Henry Augustus Ward's. Ward opened his natural history establishment in 1862 in Rochester, New York. Its archive contains 22 folders of descriptions of meteorites. Ward was the world's greatest collector of meteorites and also a correspondent of the circus impresario P.T. Barnum, for whom his workers stuffed an elephant named Jumbo. In the words of Susan Sheets Pineson, Ward shaped the inventories and trained the curators of museums located in the United States and across the world, trained taxidermists and preparators. He was also a scientific traveller, a rescuer of meteorites from Santa Rosa and Verumin and Barcubito. Brezina wrote that Ward's collection represents a greater number of localities than any other public or private collection, nearly 90% of all meteorites known, and it averages so high in weights that later it may from its surplus furnish the material for all kinds of researches and for exchanges on the largest scale, so that it will be independent from acquisitions by purchases for a long time and will permit of the formation by and by of a synoptical collection. Slices could be taken from the collection without interfering with its bulk, providing the foundation for a different arrangement. Meteorite collections are the kinds of things which have surpluses. Brezina went on to sketch the different ways in which meteorites should be classified. The first class, he said, was Bethel medals, through which ancient civilizations recorded veneration for meteorites. Almost none survive to the present. Norbert Classen, former president of the International Meteorite Collectors Association, went to visit one rare exception, the Black Stone of Paphos, in 2006. Classen found the rock was no real meteorite, but a large terrestrial andesitic rock. He concluded that what seemed to be fusion crust on first sight proved to be the sticky remnants of centuries of libations with honey and all kinds of love fluids. Arrangements like Brezina's are attempts to transform meteorites from events, treasures, visitations, into systematic sources of evidence. As such, they can be aligned with what historians have told us of the long mutation of scientific facts. Lorraine Daston describes the shift from a singular and striking event that could be replicated only with great difficulty, if at all, to a large and uniform class of events that could be produced at will. The texture of description of nature changed accordingly, from long accounts bristling with particulars to concise reports made deliberately bland by summary, repetition, and omission of details. Reflecting on this claim of Daston's, I've often wondered about the role it leaves for history. Should historians of science take on the other facts, the singular, the striking, the one-time deal, the crust which turns out to be honey? The ardours and labours described here, adventuring, marketing, worshipping, treatment with acid and fire, are parts of a meteorite's history, its itinerary after its earthfall. For all the abundance of Ward's collections, meteorites from Virginia are rare, only 11 listed, most found when a plough blade met metal. In the 19th century, their apparition was likened to cannon fire, or the rumbling of a carriage on a neighbouring stony road.